The massive alien space station called Nexus Prime hung in the darkness like a metal city. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched it grow larger as they approached. The station was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its surface was covered with lights that blinked in patterns he could not understand. Impressive, isn't it? Dr. Lisa Carter said as she joined him at the observation window. She was Earth's best negotiator and had spent years studying alien cultures. The Galactic Council built this place to show their power. Jake nodded but felt uneasy. Something about the way the aliens had invited humans to these peace talks bothered him. The message had been polite on the surface, but felt wrong underneath. It was like being invited to dinner by someone who thought you were stupid. Admiral Davis isn't happy about this, Jake said quietly. Rick Davis commanded Earth's entire defense fleet and had argued against sending negotiators at all. He believed the aliens saw humans as nothing more than useful soldiers. Lisa sighed. Rick thinks everyone wants to fight. These talks could bring peace to the entire galaxy. We have to try. Their ship docked at a small port on the outer edge of the station. Jake noticed immediately that other alien ships were docked at the main ports near the center. Those areas looked clean and well-maintained. Their assigned docking bay was in what looked like the maintenance section. A tall blue alien with 4 arms met them at the airlock. His skin looked like metal, and his eyes glowed yellow. "I am Assistant. Docking Controller Vextim," he said in perfect English. "You will follow me to your quarters." Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Not even a proper welcome committee. They walked through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The ceilings were 20 feet high, and the walls were covered with symbols that hurt to look at. Other aliens passed them without acknowledgement. Some looked like giant insects, others were floating energy beings, and a few resembled reptiles walking on 2 legs. "Your accommodations," Vextim said, stopping at a heavy door marked with symbols. The room beyond was small and cramped with basic furniture that looked like it had been built for someone else entirely. "This is all?" Lisa asked, trying to keep her voice polite. "You are fortunate to receive quarters at all," Vextim replied. "The Council shows great generosity to your species." After he left, Jake and Lisa sat on the uncomfortable chairs and looked around their tiny room. Through a small window, they could see the luxurious quarters where other species were staying. Those rooms were 3 times larger with gardens and pools. Maybe Admiral Davis was right. Jake muttered. The next morning, they were escorted to the great council chamber. The room was enormous, with a dome ceiling that showed stars and planets moving in real patterns. 12 seats arranged in a circle held the representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species. Zethkar of the Vulcarians sat on a throne that floated above the others. He was humanoid, but twice as tall as any human, with silver skin and eyes like black holes. When he spoke, his voice filled the entire chamber. "We gathered today to discuss the territorial disputes in the Outer Rim," he announced. "These primitive conflicts have gone on too long. The advanced species of the galaxy will now impose order." Lisa stood to speak, but Zethkar held up a hand. "The human representative will observe today. You may speak when we determine your input has value." For 6 hours, the aliens discussed dividing up star systems like they were pieces of property. They talked about humans as if they were not in the room. The Saurian representative, a lizard-like being named Quindao, suggested that humans would make excellent workers in the mining colonies. "They breed quickly and seem to enjoy violence," he said with what might have been a smile. "Perfect for dangerous work." Nintala, one of the Ascended, floated above her seat like a glowing cloud. "The humans show promise but lack wisdom. They need guidance from those who have achieved true civilization." When the session finally ended, Lisa approached Sherman Zethkar. "Excuse me, but we came here to participate in negotiations, not to be assigned work details." Sethkar looked down at her like she was an insect. Dr. Carter, is it? You must understand your place here. Humans are newcomers to galactic society. You have much to learn before you can contribute meaningfully to important decisions. Our colonies in the Outer Rim have been defending themselves against hostile forces for 20 years, Lisa replied firmly. We have experience that might be valuable. Experience and violence, yes, Nimtala's voice whispered like wind. But true peace requires wisdom that your species has not yet developed. Back in their cramped quarters that night, Lisa paced back and forth while Jake sat at the small table writing his daily report to Admiral Davis. They don't want negotiations, Lisa said angrily. They want us to agree to whatever they decide. What exactly are they deciding? Jake asked. Lisa pulled out her datapad and showed him the session notes. They're dividing up human space among themselves. Every colony we've built, every trade route we've established, every defensive position we hold, they're treating it all like unclaimed territory. Jake read through the notes with growing alarm. They think we're going to just hand everything over? Worse, Lisa said. They think we should be grateful for the opportunity to serve them. The next few days followed the same pattern. Long sessions where aliens discussed human territories and resources, while treating the human representatives like unwelcome observers. When Lisa tried to speak, she was either ignored or told to wait for appropriate moments that never came. The breaking point came during the fourth day when Chairman Sethkar announced that humans would be required to provide military service to support Galactic Council operations. The human capacity for warfare, while primitive, can be useful when properly directed, he declared. Human soldiers will serve under alien commanders in conflicts deemed necessary by the Council. Lisa stood up. That's not negotiation. That's conscription. Sit down, Quindle hissed. You speak when given permission. I'm the official representative of humanity, Lisa said loudly. I have every right to participate in discussions about my people's future. The chamber fell silent. 12 pairs of alien eyes focused on her with expressions ranging from amusement to contempt. Your people's future has already been decided, Chairman Sethkar said coldly. These sessions are merely a formality to ensure proper documentation. Humans will accept the guidance of advanced species or face the consequences of continued isolation. That night, Jake sent an encrypted message to Admiral Davis. 3 words. Talks are over. The response came back immediately. Understood. Begin withdrawal preparations. Lisa found Jake packing their equipment. We can't give up, she said. There has to be a way to make them listen. They've been listening, Jake replied. They've heard everything they wanted to hear. We're primitives who need guidance. We're useful for dangerous work. We should be grateful they're even talking to us. So we just leave? Jake sealed the last case and looked at her seriously. Lisa, they never intended to negotiate with us. They intended to tell us what we were going to do and expect us to be thankful about it. Outside their small window, the lights of Nexus Prime continued their incomprehensible patterns. Somewhere in those bright corridors, 12 alien species were planning humanity's future without asking what humans wanted. Jake and Lisa didn't know it yet, but their departure would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Jake Morrison and Dr. Lisa Carter arrived at Nexus Prime. Each day brought new humiliations and dismissals. The aliens treated humans like children who needed constant supervision and guidance. Commander Steve Parker was Jake's tactical officer and had been growing more frustrated with each passing day. He was a practical man who believed in direct action. Captain, we're wasting time here, he said during their morning briefing. These aliens have no intention of treating us as equals. Jake nodded, but kept his voice low. Admiral Davis wants us to gather as much intelligence as possible before we make any decisions. What intelligence? Steve asked bitterly. That they think we're useful idiots? We figured that out on day 1. Ambassador Helen Wright had arrived 2 days earlier as Earth's most experienced diplomat. She was 70 years old and had negotiated treaties with dozens of different cultures. If anyone could salvage these talks, it would be her. The key is patience, Helen told them. These species have been dealing with each other for thousands of years. They have established ways of doing things. We need to show them that humans can adapt to galactic civilization. Dr. Paul Jensen disagreed. He was Earth's leading expert on alien technology and had been studying the Galactic Council systems since they arrived. Ambassador, with respect, they don't want us to adapt. They want us to submit. That afternoon, the Council called for a special session. Chairman Zethkar floated above his throne, looking more imposing than usual. The other 11 species representatives sat in their circle, all focused on the small human delegation. The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's integration into galactic society. Zethkar announced, "We present the final peace accord." A holographic document appeared in the center of the chamber. The terms were written in dozens of alien languages, but a human translation scrolled along the bottom. Lisa read the terms aloud, her voice growing tighter with each word. Humanity agrees to withdraw from all colonies beyond the Sol system within 1 standard year. All human military vessels will be placed under Galactic Council oversight. Earth will provide 1 million workers annually for Council mining operations. Human research and development will be subject to Council approval and supervision. The chamber was silent except for the humming of the station systems. Jake felt his hands clench into fists, but forced himself to remain calm. "These aren't peace terms," Ambassador Wright said carefully. "This is complete surrender of human sovereignty." Nimtala's ethereal voice drifted from her floating position. "Sovereignty is a primitive concept. Advanced species understand that. Individual desires must serve the greater good of galactic civilization." Quindle's reptilian head tilted as he studied the humans. "Your species shows potential, but lacks discipline. Council oversight will help you develop properly. What if we refuse?" Lisa asked. "Then humanity will remain isolated and primitive." Chairman Zethkar replied, "The galaxy will move forward without you." That evening, Dr. Jensen worked late in the small computer terminal they had been assigned. He was supposed to be preparing reports for Earth, but instead he was doing something more dangerous. He was trying to break into the Council's data systems. Jensen was brilliant with computers and had noticed that the aliens were overconfident about their security. They assumed that primitive humans could never threaten their advanced technology. They were wrong. Jensen found gaps in their defenses that led to classified communications between Council members. What he discovered made his blood run cold. The next morning, he burst into their quarters where Jake, Lisa, and Ambassador Wright were having breakfast. "You need to see this," Jensen said, activating his portable display. "I intercepted Council communications from last night, and messages were clear and damning. The Galactic Council had never intended to negotiate with humans. The entire peace process was designed to create legal documentation that would justify taking human territories and resources." "Listen to this," Jensen said, playing an audio file. It was Chairman Zethkar speaking to another Council member. "The humans are even more primitive than we expected. They actually believe we might treat them as equals. Once they sign the accord, we can partition their space among the member species. The Valkyrians will take the mineral-rich systems. The Saurians can have the agricultural worlds, and the Ascended want the research stations." Another voice responded, "Quindle, what about human resistance?" "There will be none," Zethkar laughed. "They are too weak and divided to oppose us. Their own representatives will sign away their freedom and thank us for the privilege." Ambassador Wright's face had gone pale. "They never intended to negotiate. This whole thing is a sham." It gets worse, Jensen said, pulling up more files. They've already begun moving their fleets into position around human colonies. The moment we sign that accord, they'll begin occupation. Lisa grabbed the display and scrolled through more. Documents. Look at this. They're planning to separate human families. Adults go to work camps. Children get sent to education centers to learn proper galactic values. Jake stood up and walked to the small window. Outside, alien ships moved through space in precise formations. Each one was larger and more advanced than anything humans had built. How many ships do they have positioned near human space? He asked Jensen. Checked his stolen data. 12 full battle fleets. Each one could destroy our entire navy. So we're trapped, Steve said grimly. Sign the accord and become slaves, or refuse and get wiped out. Ambassador Wright was reading through more of the intercepted communications. There's something else here. They're discussing what they call the human problem in the long term. She showed them a document that made their situation even clearer. The aliens viewed humans as useful in the short term, but dangerous in the long term. Human technological development was advancing too quickly. Human military tactics were too unpredictable. Human culture was too independent. The plan was to use humans for dangerous work and military service until they could be replaced by more controllable artificial beings. Then humanity would be gradually eliminated. We have to warn Earth, Lisa said. They'll never let us leave now, Jake replied. Not if they suspect we know the truth. Jensen looked up from his computer. Actually, they might. Look at these messages. From today, they're discussing the signing ceremony. They want maximum publicity to show other species what happens when you cooperate with the Council. Chairman Zethkar had planned a great spectacle. Representatives from hundreds of species would witness humanity's voluntary submission to Council authority. It would be broadcast throughout the galaxy as proof of Council wisdom and power. They want us to sign publicly, Ambassador Wright realized. They need us to appear willing and grateful. Which means we still have some value to them, Jake said. Thoughtfully. They need us to cooperate, at least until the ceremony. That afternoon, the Council summoned them for what Zethkar called a clarification session. The humans were escorted into the Great Chamber, where all 12 species representatives waited. We understand that humans require additional explanation of the accord terms, Chairman Zethkar said condescendingly. Your primitive legal systems may not fully comprehend the sophistication of galactic law. Ambassador Wright stepped forward with decades of diplomatic experience guiding her words. We appreciate the Council's patience with our limitations. However, we've discovered some concerning inconsistencies in the documentation. She began presenting Jensen's evidence carefully, without revealing how they had obtained it. She pointed out contradictions between what they had been told verbally and what was written in the accord. The alien representatives exchanged glances that humans weren't supposed to understand. But Jensen had been studying alien body language for weeks and recognized the signs of alarm. These are not inconsistencies, Quindle hissed. These are details that primitive minds cannot properly interpret. Perhaps, Wright replied smoothly. But surely the Council wants humanity to fully understand what we're agreeing to. After all, willing cooperation is more valuable than forced compliance. Nim Tala's glowing form flickered with what might have been irritation. The human representative questions Council wisdom. Not at all, Wright said. We're simply asking for clarification so that we can explain the benefits to our people back on Earth. Chairman Zethkar leaned forward on his floating throne. What clarification do you require? Wright looked directly at him. We want the truth. The chamber fell, silent. For a moment, the mask of civilized diplomacy slipped from the aliens' faces. Jake saw them as they really were, predators who had been playing with their food. The truth, Zethkar said slowly, is that humanity will accept the terms we have offered or face the consequences of defiance. And those consequences are the destruction of your species, Quindle said simply. Your worlds burned, your people enslaved or eliminated, your civilization erased from galactic history. Ambassador Wright nodded as if she had expected this. Answer: thank you for the clarification. We'll need time to consider our response. You have until tomorrow, Chairman Zefkar declared. Sign the accord or face annihilation. That night, the human delegation sat in their cramped quarters and made the most important decision in their species' history. Captain Jake Morrison woke before dawn on what would be their last day at Nexus Prime. The decision had been made during a long night of quiet discussion. They would not sign the Galactic Council's accord. They would not submit to slavery disguised as civilization. They would leave. Dr. Lisa Carter was already awake, carefully packing her research materials. She had spent 3 weeks documenting alien behavior and technology, information that would be valuable when they returned to Earth. Her hands moved efficiently as she sealed each case, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. Any regrets? He asked quietly. Lisa looked up at him. About leaving? No. About what comes next? Yes. Ambassador Helen Wright sat at the small table, composing their final message to the Galactic Council. Her diplomatic experience had taught her the importance of proper protocol, even when walking away from impossible situations. Keep it simple, Commander Steve Parker advised. He was checking their weapons and equipment, making sure everything was secure for departure. They don't deserve explanations. Wright nodded. Simple but clear. We want no misunderstandings about our intentions. Dr. Paul Jensen worked at his computer terminal, carefully erasing any traces of his unauthorized access to council systems. The aliens would eventually discover what he had done, but there was no reason to make it easy for them. How long before they realize we're gone? Lisa asked. The morning session doesn't start for 3 hours, Wright replied. We should be well into hyperspace by then. Jake activated his communicator and sent a coded message to his ship. Within minutes, the crew would begin final departure preparations. The engines would warm up, navigation systems would plot their course home, and weapons would be charged for any pursuit. General Frank Miller had planned their withdrawal carefully from Earth. Every detail had been considered, every contingency prepared for. If the talks failed, humanity would extract its people quickly and cleanly, without giving the aliens time to react. The plan was working perfectly. They moved through the empty corridors of Nexus Prime like ghosts. The station operated on a 30-hour cycle, and most species were in their rest periods. The few aliens they encountered paid no attention to humans carrying luggage. After all, where could primitives go on a Galactic Council station? At the docking bay, Jake's crew was waiting. Captain Tony Lee, his second in command, had the ship ready for immediate departure. The engines hummed with contained power, and the navigation computer showed a direct course to Sol System. Any problems? Jake asked. None, sir, Lee replied. The aliens haven't even noticed we're preparing to leave. Their security is focused on preventing people from getting in, not getting out. Within 20 minutes, the human delegation was aboard their ship. The docking clamps released, and they moved slowly away from Nexus Prime. To any observer, it looked like a routine departure for a supply run or system patrol. Only when they were clear of the station's sensor range did Jake order maximum acceleration. Toward the hyperspace jump point. Message ready for transmission, Wright announced. Send it, Jake commanded. The message was brief and professional. The human delegation withdraws from these proceedings effective immediately. Humanity wishes the Galactic Council success in resolving their territorial disputes. That was all. No threats, no accusations, no dramatic speeches. The humans simply left. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring alien communications from her position on Earth's intelligence network. She watched the hyperspace sensors track Jake's ship as it jumped toward home. At the same time, she intercepted the growing confusion on Nexus Prime as the aliens discovered the human departure. The first reaction was amusement. "The humans have gone home to sulk," Chairman Zethkar told the assembled council. "Primitive. Species often react emotionally when faced with advanced concepts they cannot understand." Quindle's reptilian laugh echoed through the great chamber. "Perhaps they expect us to beg them to return. How charmingly naive." Nimtala's ethereal voice carried a note of satisfaction. "Their departure simplifies matters. We can proceed with partitioning their territories without the pretense of consultation." The council spent the morning redrawing maps of human space. Each species claimed the systems and resources they wanted most. The Velcarians took the mineral-rich worlds. The Saurians claimed the agricultural planets, and the Ascended selected the research stations and technological centers. It was all very civilized and orderly. Back on Earth, Admiral Rick Davis received Jake's ship in the secure military port at Luna Station. The delegation's debriefing took 12 hours and resulted in a complete restructuring of humanity's defensive posture. "They never intended to negotiate," Lisa reported to the assembled military leaders. "The entire process was designed to make our surrender look voluntary." Dr. Jensen presented his stolen intelligence data, revealing the full scope of alien plans for humanity. The information painted a clear picture of systematic enslavement, followed by eventual extinction. 12 battle fleets, Admiral Davis noted. Grimly, any one of them could destroy our entire navy. "In direct confrontation, yes," agreed General Miller. "But we're not planning direct confrontation." During the 3 weeks of talks, Earth's military had not been idle. Ships had been repositioned, supplies moved, defensive networks established. While the aliens focused on their diplomatic charade, humans had been preparing for war. Colonel Dan Brooks reported on the repositioning efforts. All civilian populations have been evacuated from forward colonies. Military assets are dispersed and hidden. Supply lines are secured through routes the aliens don't know exist. Admiral Peter Stone outlined the naval situation. "Our fleet can't match their firepower, but we've established defensive positions that will make invasion costly. Very costly." On Nexus Prime, the aliens were beginning to realize that something was wrong. Veltar, the Hiven representative, was the first to notice the pattern. "The human military communications have ceased," she reported to the council. "Our monitoring stations detect no transmissions from their forward bases." "They're maintaining communication silence," Sethkar replied dismissively, "probably hoping to appear more threatening than they actually are." But Veltar's insectoid species had evolved to notice subtle changes in their environment. "No, Chairman. The communications didn't just stop. They changed frequency and encryption. The humans are using systems we cannot monitor." This got the Council's attention. During their centuries of galactic dominance, no species had successfully hidden their communications from Council surveillance. Quindle activated his own intelligence network, sending probes toward human space. What they found was disturbing. Human colonies that should have been bustling with activity appeared to be abandoned. Ships that should have been following predictable trade routes had vanished. Where did they go? Nintala asked, her ethereal form flickering with confusion. The answer came from an unexpected source. A damaged probe ship limped into Council space, carrying refugees from the Outer Rim. The captain was a Therian trader who had been doing business in human territory. When? Everything changed. "The humans are gone," he reported to the Council. "Not just from the negotiations, from everywhere. Their colonies are empty, their ships have vanished, their trade stations are abandoned." "Abandoned?" Zethkar demanded. "That's impossible. Humans don't abandon territory. "These ones did," the trader replied. "But they took everything with them. Equipment, supplies, weapons, technology. Even the buildings were stripped down to the foundations." The council chambers fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans hadn't just walked away from the negotiations. They had walked away from everything the aliens could reach. Dr. Rodriguez smiled as she read the latest intelligence reports from Council space. The aliens were finally beginning to understand that they had made a serious mistake. On Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were being called. Military fleets were being redirected. Intelligence services were frantically trying to locate the missing human population. But it was too late. Humanity had vanished into the dark spaces between stars, leaving behind only empty worlds and unanswered questions. The Galactic Council had expected to dictate terms to a primitive species. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that refused to play by their rules. In the depths of space, human ships moved along routes no alien had ever mapped. They carried the tools and knowledge needed to build a new kind of civilization, one that would never again kneel before galactic arrogance. The real war was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the humans walked away from Nexus Prime. Chairman Zeth Kar stood in the great council chamber, but the magnificent room felt different now. 3 of the 12 seats were empty. The Krugan, Yavari, and Doithan representatives had withdrawn from the council to deal with crises in their own territories. The remaining 9 species representatives looked tired and worried. The confident arrogance that had defined their treatment of humans was nowhere to be seen. "Report on the Outer Rim situation," Zethkar commanded. Veltar's insectoid form clicked nervously as she accessed her data displays. 17 more colonies have gone dark in the past month. The nightmare incursions continue to spread. Our combined fleets have suffered 60% casualties, with no significant victories. The nightmares were a species from the dark spaces beyond the galactic rim. They appeared without warning, struck with devastating force, and vanished before effective response could be mounted. For decades, they had been contained by the natural barriers of deep space and the defensive networks that various species maintained, but something had changed. The barriers were failing, and the defensive networks had collapsed. "How is this possible?" Quindle hissed. "Our military technology is superior to anything these creatures possess. Superior technology requires skilled operators." Nintala's ethereal voice carried a note of bitter understanding. The humans were our operators. The truth was becoming clear to all of them, though none wanted to admit it. Human military personnel had served throughout the galactic frontier, not as leaders, but as technical specialists, tactical advisors, and frontline soldiers. They had maintained equipment, developed strategies, and fought the battles that kept civilization safe. When humans withdrew, they took their expertise with them. Colonel Dan Brooks monitored the situation from Earth's hidden intelligence stations. His reports to military command painted a clear picture of galactic civilization in collapse. The aliens built their military around the assumption that humans would always be available to handle the dangerous jobs, he reported to Admiral Davis. "Without us, they're discovering that their advanced technology is useless if no one knows how to use it effectively." Dr. Kelly Murphy studied the psychological profiles of the alien species and confirmed what many had suspected. Most of these civilizations have been peaceful for centuries. They've forgotten how to fight. They relied on humans to handle violence while they focused on culture, art, and philosophy. It was a classic case of overspecialization. The aliens had developed magnificent technologies and sophisticated societies, but they had outsourced the brutal necessities of survival to a species they considered primitive. Now the primitives were gone. On the industrial world of Kepler Prime, the situation was becoming desperate. The planet's manufacturing systems had been designed and maintained by human engineers. When those engineers vanished, the automated systems began failing one by one. Factory after factory shut down. Supply chains collapsed. Critical components that had been produced for centuries could no longer be manufactured. The Ascended, who had claimed intellectual superiority over all other species, discovered that their advanced minds could not comprehend the practical engineering knowledge that humans had developed over generations of hands-on experience. How did they make it work? Nantala asked in frustration as she studied the silent machinery. The principles are simple, but the application defies logic. The answer was that humans had learned through trial and error, developing intuitive understanding that couldn't be taught from textbooks. They knew how to adjust for variations in materials, compensate for wear and degradation, and improvise solutions when standard procedures failed. It was practical knowledge that the aliens had dismissed as primitive craftwork. Now they desperately needed that craftwork and could not replicate it. The economic crisis spread throughout galactic civilization. Trade routes that had operated smoothly for centuries began to break down. Human traders, technicians, and logistics specialists had been the invisible foundation supporting the entire system. Without them, cargo sat in ports because no one knew how to coordinate shipments. Colonies ran short of essential supplies because distribution networks had collapsed. Even basic communication systems began failing as human-maintained relay stations went offline. Korthik of the Krugan species made a desperate decision. He secretly contacted Colonel Brooks through intermediaries, hoping to negotiate some kind of arrangement. "We understand that mistakes were made during the negotiations," his message read. "Perhaps we can find a mutually beneficial solution to our current difficulties." Brooks' response was polite but firm. Humanity appreciates the Krugan interest in renewed relations. However, we are currently focused on internal development and are not available for external commitments. The message was clear. Humans were no longer interested in serving alien needs. Back on Nexus Prime, Chairman Zeth Kar faced the worst crisis in his species' history. The Velkarian Empire, which had dominated galactic politics for millennia, was crumbling as its territories fell to nightmare attacks. "We need the humans back," he told the remaining council members. "Whatever it takes." "They won't come," Veltar replied. "Our intelligence networks can't even find them. They've vanished completely." "No one vanishes completely," Quindal insisted. "They must have gone somewhere." But human space was empty. The colonies were abandoned, the trade stations were silent, and the defensive installations had been dismantled. Wherever humanity had gone, they had left no trace for alien intelligence services to follow. Admiral Peter Stone smiled as he read the latest reports from his hidden fleet positions. The aliens were searching frantically for human settlements, sending probe ships to every system where humans had ever established a presence. They found nothing because humans had moved beyond the explored regions of the galaxy. Using their superior exploration technology and willingness to take risks, they had established new colonies in uncharted systems that alien caution had left unexplored. "Let them search," Stone told his staff. "Every ship they send looking for us is one less ship defending their own territories." The strategy was working perfectly. While alien fleets spread themselves thin, trying to locate humanity, the nightmares pressed their advantage. Each successful attack weakened galactic civilization further. Dr. Chris Morgan worked in the research facilities of humanity's new hidden colonies, developing technologies that would have been impossible under alien oversight, free from the restrictions and assumptions of galactic civilization. Human innovation had accelerated beyond all previous rates. "The aliens always assumed they were more advanced than us," he explained to his research team. "But advancement isn't just about raw technology. It's about adaptability, creativity, and the willingness to try new approaches. Human researchers had developed new types of FTL drives, energy systems that didn't rely on alien-controlled resources. And most importantly, weapons specifically designed to fight the nightmares effectively. "Sir," one of his assistants reported, "we're detecting increased nightmare activity near the Benth system. The aliens are requesting help." Morgan considered the request for a moment. The Benth were one of the species that had treated humans with particular contempt during the negotiations. "File the request," he said finally. "We'll consider it when we have time." On Nexus Prime, the Council faced its darkest hour. Half of their member species had withdrawn to protect their own territories. The great station that had once symbolized galactic unity was now a monument to failure. Zethkar stood alone in the great chamber, looking at the empty seats where proud species representatives had once sat. His own empire was under siege. His fleets were scattered and defeated. His people were crying out for protection he could not provide. For the first time in his long life, the proud chairman of the Galactic Council was forced to confront a terrible truth. They had made the greatest mistake in galactic history when they chose to treat humans as inferiors. The primitives they had dismissed and insulted were the only ones who could save them now. But the primitives were gone, and they had taken their salvation with them. In the darkness between stars, human ships moved along courses no alien mind could predict. They carried the future of their species and the tools needed to build something better than the galactic civilization they had left behind. The aliens had wanted servants. Instead, they had created their own replacement. The galaxy would never be the same. 2 years after the failed peace talks, President Lara Adams stood at the observation deck of humanity's new capital station, watching ships arrive from across the hidden colonies. Each vessel carried representatives from the scattered settlements that humans had built in the uncharted regions of space. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, constructed using technologies developed during their isolation. It was smaller than Nexus Prime, but more efficient, designed by people who understood that function mattered more than impressive displays of power. General Sam Turner approached with the latest intelligence reports from the former galactic territories. His face was grim as he handed her the datapad. "The situation continues to deteriorate," he reported. "The Galactic Council is down to 5 member species. The others have either fallen to the nightmares or withdrawn to defend their homeworlds." Lavra read through the reports with mixed feelings. Part of her felt satisfaction that the arrogant aliens were finally paying for their mistakes. But another part remembered her humanity and felt sympathy for the billions of beings who were suffering. "Any word from the delegation that's supposed to arrive today?" she asked. "Long-range sensors picked up a single ship about 6 hours ago." Turner replied, "It's badly damaged and barely maintaining life support. Whatever's left of the Council is desperate enough to send representatives in a ship that might not survive the journey." Dr. Chris Morgan joined them at the observation window. His research teams had made breakthrough after breakthrough during humanity's 2 years of isolation. Free from alien restrictions and assumptions, human science had advanced faster than anyone thought possible. "The new defensive systems are online," he reported. "If the nightmares try to follow the Council ship here, we can handle them." Lavra nodded. The nightmares had been humanity's greatest discovery during their exile. These creatures from dark space were not the unstoppable force that had terrorized galactic civilization. They were simply using tactics and technologies that the aliens couldn't understand or counter. Humans could. "Ma'am," Turner said, checking his communicator, "the Council ship is requesting permission to dock. They're asking for an audience with you personally." "Just one ship?" Lavra asked. "That's all that's left of their fleet," Turner confirmed. "Intelligence suggests that Nexus Prime was overrun 3 months ago. This might be the last free Council vessel in existence." Lavra made her decision. grant them docking permission, but full security protocols. We don't know what they might. Be desperate enough to try. An hour later, she stood in the station's main docking bay as the council ship limped into port. The vessel that had once been magnificent was now scarred by battle damage and barely holding together. Sections of the hull had been patched with materials that didn't match, and the engine signatures showed systems running far beyond safe parameters. The airlock opened and 3 figures emerged. Lavra recognized Chairman Zethkar immediately, though he looked nothing like the proud leader who had dismissed humanity 2 years earlier. His silver skin was dull and marked with scars. His black eyes, once filled with arrogance, now showed only exhaustion and desperation. With him were Veltar of the Hivrans, and one representative Lara didn't recognize, probably from one of the species that had joined the council after humans. Left. President Adams, Zethkar said, his voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for agreeing to see us. The difference in tone was startling. Gone was the condescending authority. This was a broken leader begging for help from people he had once considered inferior. Chairman Zethkar, Lavra replied formally. You requested this meeting. What do you want? We want to surrender, he said simply. The words hung in the air, like a physical presence. Lavra had expected many things from this meeting, but not a complete surrender. Surrender to whom? She asked. To humanity, Veltar clicked nervously. We recognize that we made terrible mistakes. We treated your species badly, and now we're paying the price. We're asking for your help. Lavra gestured for them to follow her to a conference room. As they walked through the station's corridors, she could see the aliens looking around in amazement. Human technology had advanced so far during their isolation that even these representatives of supposedly superior civilizations were impressed. In the conference room, General Turner and Dr. Morgan waited with several other human officials. The aliens sat across from them, looking small and defeated despite their larger size. Tell me about the current situation, Lavra said. Zethkar activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed now. Vast sections were marked in red, indicating nightmare-controlled territory. The areas still under alien control had shrunk to a few isolated systems around heavily defended homeworlds. We've lost everything, he admitted. Entire civilizations have been wiped out. Billions of beings are dead or enslaved. The nightmares advance faster than we can retreat. And you think we can help how? Dr. Morgan asked. The alien they didn't recognize spoke up. We know that humans have been fighting the nightmares successfully. Our intelligence services detected energy signatures from battles where nightmare forces were completely destroyed. No alien fleet has ever achieved such results. Lavra exchanged glances with her advisors. It was true that human forces had engaged nightmare raiders several times, always with decisive victories. The aliens couldn't understand how, but humans had figured out the nightmare's weaknesses. Why should we help you? General Turner asked bluntly. 2 years ago, you wanted to enslave our entire species. You planned to eliminate us once we were no longer useful. Now you come here begging for the help you tried to steal. Zethkar flinched at the harsh words, but didn't deny them. Because you're better than we are, he said quietly. We thought strength meant domination. You've shown us that real strength means having the power to help and choosing to use it wisely. Veltar leaned forward urgently. The nightmares aren't just destroying our civilizations. They're consuming everything. If they're not stopped, they'll eventually find your hidden colonies too. This isn't just about saving us anymore. It's about stopping a threat to all life in the galaxy. Lavra considered their words carefully. Intelligence reports confirmed that the nightmares were indeed growing stronger and spreading faster. It was possible that they would eventually become a threat to humanity's new settlements. What exactly are you offering? She asked. Complete Surrender, Sethkar replied. The remaining council species will accept human leadership in all military matters. We'll share our technology freely. We'll follow human orders without question. We just want to survive. Dr. Morgan spoke up. Our analysis suggests that the nightmare threat can be contained, but it would require a coordinated response across multiple sectors. No single species has the resources to handle it alone. Even humanity? The unknown alien asked hopefully. Even humanity, Morgan confirmed. But with the combined resources of all species, including the technologies and knowledge you've developed, it might be possible. Laura stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, entire civilizations were fighting for their survival against an enemy they couldn't understand. The same species that had tried to enslave humanity were now offering complete submission in exchange for help. There would be conditions, she said finally. Anything, Sethkar said eagerly. First, complete transparency. No hidden agendas, no secret plans, no attempts to regain control once the crisis passes. Second, reparations. The species that survive this will compensate humanity for the resources we expend saving them. Third, permanent changes. When this is over, the galaxy will be organized differently. No more councils that treat some species as superior to others. Agreed, all three aliens said simultaneously. Lavra smiled slightly. You agreed very quickly. You haven't even heard all the terms yet. It doesn't matter, Veltar clicked. Any terms you offer are better than extinction. Over the following days, Lavra met with representatives from the human colonies to discuss the alien request. The debate was intense. Many argued that humanity should let the aliens face the consequences of their arrogance. Others pointed out that the nightmare threat was real and growing. In the end, it was Captain Jake Morrison who helped her make the decision. He had returned from a scouting mission to the former council territories with first-hand reports of the devastation. I saw entire worlds burn to nothing, he told the assembly. Billions of beings dead, not because they were evil, but because their leaders made stupid decisions. The people paying the price aren't the ones who insulted us. Dr. Lisa Carter, now serving as humanity's chief xenobiologist, agreed. We have the power to stop this. That means we have the responsibility to try. President Adams made her announcement to both human colonies and alien representatives simultaneously. Humanity will provide assistance against the nightmare threat. But we do this as the dominant partner, with full authority over strategy and tactics. Any species that wants our help will accept human leadership completely. The response from the alien survivors was immediate and unanimous acceptance.